All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome. It's Friday. It's 4 p.m. Pacific. It's time for Pathfinder Friday. I'm glad you could join us. Today, we've got a big show. We're going to recap some rules updates that came out on Monday. We're going to do some deep dive into surveys and all of that sort of thing. And on top of all that, we've got Logan Bonner here with us. Welcome to the show, Logan.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes. So really quick, Krub, no, I did not know that they replaced... I didn't know they replaced the communities, so I'll have to look into that. Yeah, thank you for the heads up. I'll do that. I didn't notice. So anyway, jumping in.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. It's glad to have you here. Heading into the weekend, we hope we can have some fun with the show. And we're going to do, look, I'm trying. And we've got some fun things to talk about. So first of all, we had a new rules update on Monday.
We did.
Yeah, and there was some big stuff in there.
Yeah, this was a really big one. So a lot of the last couple weeks has been hammering on that. Right. A lot of hard work put in by the editors to get it all together. So and by the design team to kind of compile everything. So that's kind of been our big focus recently. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I want to mention about this update is that we aren't usually going to be doing updates that are this huge and kind of this expansive and touch this many parts of the game.
Okay.
But this is kind of one where we saw a lot of, there was some stuff we wanted to test, but there are also a few things that are kind of like, we could have just held off on them until the final book. Like some of the changes like the sorcerer and the rogue, some of the smaller pieces, like we could have just held off on that.
Right.
But there's some things where it's like, people are playing with this playtest for the better part of a year. So we want to, like if there's some stuff that's not quite satisfactory, that's like we can do this much work to make people's games this much better, and we kind of wanted to do that.
Okay. All right.
So that's one reason kind of this update is big. The next one is going to be significantly smaller, but we kind of wanted to put a bunch of this stuff out there.
Okay. What is that?
All at once.
If next update is significant, is that going to be this Monday? The following Monday.
The following Monday.
Following Monday, not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. Yeah. If it's not going to be as big of an update, are we still going to be doing a top 10, a top 5 updates coming?
I don't know. I'm not going to be on that stream, so I don't have to worry about it.
Fine. We'll get this taken care of, folks. Okay, let's jump into update 1.3.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's run through some of the topics that have been addressed.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff. The biggest ones are, kind of the biggest 3 are treat wounds, which is kind of a new use of the medicine skill. Mm-hmm. That a lot of people are talking about, and this is kind of a big change.
Right.
Another change to the death and dying rules to kind of make it a little more deadly after update 1.2 kind of made it easier to track and keep track of. It was like that part worked, but we wanted it to be a little more dangerous feeling, so we made some changes to that. And then the third part, which is not in the update document because it kind of needed to be its own thing, but we released archetypes for all the remaining multi-class choices. So because the printed book just has the fighter, cleric, wizard, and rogue, so it was like we've got enough of this together. We think we can get this together for release. So that was the other big thing that came out.
Okay.
On that Monday update.
Okay, great. So let's go into a little bit of a deep dive here.
Okay.
Let's break down some of this stuff. Yeah. So there was a change to I believe there's a change to the character sheet.
Yeah. There's also we changed skills.
Okay.
Untrained skills, yeah.
Okay.
So that was the big thing that required a change in the character sheet. So untrained skills, instead of being your level -2, are now your level -4. That is mostly because people were feeling that there wasn't a big enough advantage to being trained in something compared to untrained characters who had a decent stat. They were feeling like, I put this effort into being good at this skill, but I'm not that much better than somebody who put no effort into it.
Right.
So we changed that up a little bit. We had been looking at kind of various number schemes, and so we're trying this one out and seeing what people think of that, whether it feels, if it gives them the feel that they want for those stats.
Okay. All right.
So that's one of the things that happened. And the character sheet, I think it didn't get updated with everything else when the update came out, but it's updated now.
Right.
There's also a couple other little changes to the character sheet, like people had mentioned. There wasn't a space for their special senses, and there are a couple other kind of small changes on there, along with kind of a reminder of how the untrained bonuses changed on there.
Okay.
So it was a relatively small update, but I just wanted to mention that it's been updated. If people had gone and downloaded the character sheet and were like, "Oh, this is out of date," it is now up to date.
It is now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I believe
good.
the pre-generated characters for Pathfinder Society have also been updated.
Oh, good.
To go
okay.
with those changes.
Because the PFS just uses pre-gen. Is that right?
You can use them.
Okay.
They're an option for some of those adventures.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Good. What else do we have coming through?
So in the last update, I'll talk about the Death and Dying one because that is kind of something that we had already made a change to, so that you didn't have the dying condition while you were not dying, because that confused a lot of people. But we found that people were not feeling very threatened because they were dropping and then coming back was slowed, but then they were kind of just all the way back into the fight. So we've introduced the wounded condition. So after you get dropped to 0 and you're dying and you get brought back, you gain a wounded condition, which is going to mean if you gain the dying condition again, it is going to be higher by 1, and that's going to stack up. So if you get dropped and brought up a second time, then it's going to be higher by 2, which means you could instantly die from a crit. So you really, like if you've gotten brought up 2 times, you really need to change your strategy because you do not want to be in danger of just instantly dying at that point. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're getting some pretty good feedback on that. People are, a lot of folks are kind of saying, oh, this makes it feel more dangerous. This is kind of giving us what we wanted out of that rule. So we're going to keep monitoring that, see what people are saying about it. But so far, the early response has been pretty positive.
Okay, so it seems like it's just an idea where we're just kind of making these little changes here and there to try to patch it up as it goes to eventually all these little things equal up to a really good mechanic of the way that it works. And I assume that's just because you don't want to swing that pendulum the other way and have it
well, we don't want to have a playtest where it's just like everybody dies completely by accident, right? Just like, everybody's just dead now. We find out all the groups are TPKing. That would be pretty bad. So we're kind of making kind of incremental changes and kind of pushing in different directions just to make sure it works before we go too much further. So.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Let's see. What else do we have coming from last
this previous one? So kind of related to the Death and Dying one is treat wounds, because treat wounds is one of the ways you can clear the wounded condition. So like as long as you've kind of had some time off between your fights, you can get rid of the wounded condition. You have time to kind of get back to full health. The treat wounds ability is a new use of the medicine skill.
Okay.
And this is a pretty big one because it really does change kind of the flow of play pretty significantly, or at least that's the intent. And it's kind of in response to a few different things we were seeing. One is that people wanted non-magical healing to be stronger. They were finding that they really felt like they had to have a healer, especially they had to have a cleric in a lot of cases. They wanted more options for non-magical healing that would make it easier to build different kinds of groups of player characters.
Okay.
So that's one of the things for it, because anybody who's trained in medicine can use this. So if the ranger wants to get good at it, they can do that. Another one of the goals one of the pieces of feedback we were getting was that adventuring days are too short. And part of that is because of people needing to spend their spells on healing. And so they felt like they were running out of spells more quickly. And so this is kind of a kind of counterfactor to running out of spells as a way to extend the adventuring day, because we know a lot of people really don't like kind of the 15-minute adventuring day thing. And wanted reasons to press on, and this kind of means that you're expending fewer resources to keep going. So we wanted to, but it does take time because it's 10 minutes each time you try it. So there is kind of a time pressure instead of the kind of spell pressure. So we wanted to see how that played.
Okay.
And then the last thing was, before, we know people are always going to want to be at full strength going into a fight. That's just kind of like that is kind of always the optimal strategy. You want to be as full as you can be going into a fight. So in first edition, people are usually doing this by getting up to a higher level and getting wands of cure light wounds because they were cheap. And so it was kind of the most efficient way to heal up was to get those and to spend the charges off those and heal up. And we're trying to kind of get away from that paradigm a little bit, where spending your monetary resources wisely was the most efficient route. So now we're kind of saying, all right, here's something that's not going to cost you monetary resources. This is now the cheapest option because it's free. So except for you need to have a healer's kit, but that's a one-time purchase. So that kind of means
stays with you. The healer's kit.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can keep using that. So now there's kind of this this alternative to doing that, and we want to see if people feel satisfied by that. And we know one of the biggest challenges is going to be whether people kind of say, it seems unrealistic that I can heal up this quickly without any magic.
Right.
So we're kind of watching to see if that is a big enough issue that we need to make some changes to it. And we are ready to potentially make changes if that happens, because this is kind of like, we're pushing it as far as we think is reasonable to go. This is kind of like, this is the most laissez-faire option. This is just like, yeah, you want to keep healing, you can spend 10 minutes and keep healing. So if people are like, this feels too easy or too unlimited, or we can just adventure as long as we want and it doesn't matter, then we have some different kind of ideas on how to potentially pull that back if people find that unsatisfying.
Again, it comes back to the idea of now it's just time management and spending time to get to where they are wanting to go and all that kind of thing. And then I assume whether you're looking at success rate and death rates and all of that kind of thing, that's going to help you kind of determine if this is really doing as it's intended.
And our surveys are asking, like, how many times did you rest for the night? So we can kind of see how those numbers are going, because if people are getting to heal up more, that means they'll probably be resting less often. And is it hitting such a high number that it is or it's such a low number rather than it's just like, oh, you can just blow through a whole adventure in a day because you can heal up. Is that what we want? So we kind of need to keep an eye on those.
Okay. So getting into, so does that kind of cover most of the bigger update things?
Yeah, I think pretty much.
And we'll get into, we'll do Q&A after this. So if you have questions, that's awesome. Let's hang on to those. We'll do the recap first and then we'll do the Q&A. Okay. Moving on to survey data.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because we've been looking at the Part 3 surveys because the past 2 weeks were kind of the window for Part 3 of Doomsday Dawn. We've been looking at those survey results primarily. I know you posted that this is a spoiler-free stream.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go too deep on like some of the details. Like there's some kind of fun details that are like of the play of the
adventure. I gotcha. Okay.
But I'm going to talk about kind of some of the stuff we were looking at with because we kind of put some restrictions on this one on what types of characters you could build.
Okay.
So we found that half the players playing made clerics.
Okay.
So we have a lot of like interesting data on the clerics people made. That's a big change. And we also found that we're monitoring how long it takes people to make characters. And this was, the first adventure has first level characters, the second adventure had fourth level characters, and then this is seventh level characters. And we found it took about a half hour longer to make those seventh level characters.
Okay.
Because it was taking about an hour and a half, and now it's taking about 2 hours.
Interesting. So what do we attribute the change in the jump in time?
So part of it is that they are, because it's a higher level character, 7th level, you're getting, that's a new spell slot level. So you're getting those spells and then every lower spell level. So you're getting your 4th level spells, your 3rd level spells, your 2nd and your 1st. Whereas the 4th level adventure, you're just getting your 2nd and 1st level spells. So you're picking a lot more stuff, and this is like I said, this is just a cleric comparison. So you're just having more spells to pick. And cleric is a relatively a class with a lot of choices in it already. So we know those are going to be a little longer than, say, making a rogue, which doesn't have quite as many choices. Though by this level, rogues are actually getting quite a few choices as well. But there are some classes where it's like you're not making quite as many different choices because the cleric needs to choose their deity and their domain and that kind of stuff, and that can take you some time. So we think that's part of it, is kind of that complexity. And also, you're not leveling up. You're making the character from scratch. And making a higher level character from scratch always takes longer. So like adding a half hour to the creation time isn't a massive increase given all those factors.
That's true. Yeah. I think needing a little bit more of a time investment to get it the way that you want it to be and all of that sort of thing. Speaking of that, do we know like which deities are Most popular?
Oh,
since it's a lot of clerics,
yeah.
Are we asking that question?
We did.
Okay.
Starting from the first survey, we asked like, what deity do you worship? Partially just to kind of figure out like which deities are popular. But then this is the one that's like, oh, you're making a ton of clerics and paladins. Like, which deities are going to be popular?
Yeah.
So for just the clerics, the ones that really stood out is like, oh yeah, everybody's playing these are Sarenrae and Pharasma. Mm-hmm. Which are the ones who have the healing domain.
Right. Yeah,
so it's like,
sense.
yeah, you want to heal a lot. You want so Sarenrae accounted for 27% of the clerics. Mm-hmm. Just Sarenrae alone. Yeah.
Okay. No, I guess not really surprising though. I mean, you know.
She's really cool.
She is really cool. Yeah.
And the second deity, who's also really cool, is Pharasma, who had 14% of the clerics.
Right. Who also is pretty cool.
Also pretty cool. Yeah. And then we kind of see like, okay, those are the healing domain deities who are not evil, which I don't think we have any healing. We let Lamashtu choose heal spells in this edition, but we didn't give her the healing domain. We didn't go that far.
Okay.
But then the next jump is, all right, I don't want to be a healer. Who do I pick? Well, I pick Gorham. Because I want to carry a badass weapon, and I want to cast True Strike, so I'm picking Gorham. So Gorham had 11% of the clerics.
Do you find that people are picking their deity based on just how they want to play, as opposed to flavor?
You know, we didn't really like ask that specifically, so it can be kind of hard to tell. I think the nice thing about all those deities is like all of them like have a really fun flavor to them, and most of our deities do, right? But I think if like Abadar were a really powerful mechanical option, we might be seeing more Abadar players. I think having the healing domain does make a big difference, but also just like, you know, Sarenrae following the light of the Dawnflower, getting to cast fire spells, all that kind of stuff is super fun. So I think a lot of it is also just kind of the theme of those deities is really fun. And that's like fair. Gorham, like if you want to be the big butt kicker, you know, who else are you going to pick, right? Just like I want to just cause a lot of damage, and
the choice is almost made for you at that point. I think that's fair.
Well, and for like some of the other surveys we saw, like Caden Kalian was super popular, and just for the ones we were just asking, just in general, what deities do you worship? Because it's like, yeah, drinking beer and liberation and woo, yeah, Caden Kalian. So I think we are seeing a lot of people choose based on theme.
Okay, nice. And where does Iomade fit in? Where was that? What was that percentage?
Iomade wasn't super high on clerics.
Okay.
But we looked at the paladin numbers, and Iomade is obviously huge.
Well,
right?
That's fair.
Iomade is probably like, I think she's second total among all the characters, rather than just clerics.
Okay.
Because I think Sarenrae is still like the highest, partially just because she's 27% of clerics, and they're 50% of classes. So she's already just got a huge chunk just from that, aside from other characters of other classes who follow Sarenrae.
Okay.
But Iomade is, you know, really major among paladins.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Now, getting into the rest of the survey stuff that's coming through, where are we able to get some data on, say, how people are enjoying the? Again, I don't want to get into spoilers, but are they enjoying different things like fighting, battle, skirmishes, or whatever we want to call them? And as far as how that's playing out is different levels of satisfaction.
So all the surveys we kind of ask, we have a general satisfaction at the end, but we also ask about things like the length of combat and the length of turns, because those are things that's like, those are fairly significant changes because of the action economy change. So we've been monitoring that across these, and satisfaction has generally been really high with those, and in part 3 it's staying high. So we're seeing like really good numbers on the length of turns and the length of combat. So we're pretty happy with those so far.
Yeah.
And it's obviously something that's like, we know as you get higher in level, some of those things can change, so we're going to keep an eye on those continuing. And first edition kind of has the issue of like higher level combats. It's like, I cast a spell, combat over.
Right.
So we're going to be seeing if that's happening in some of the higher level adventures, or if some of that has been kind of mitigated.
Nice.
Because especially some of the numbers aren't as crazy high or low as they were in first edition. So we're hoping that there's going to be a little less, rocket tag as it's called. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm kind of looking forward to is when this is kind of wrapped up. and we can go in there and talk about how each, how the battles are doing. We don't need to worry about
the kind of trends across all the adventures.
Just because right now, we are gathering data for this, so it is important that if someone wants to avoid spoilers, they can. But it's going to be really fun to not have that worry anymore.
Right,
we can just get in there and start
yeah.
going into all that data that's coming out. I think that's going to be really good. I think because the surveys, again, if you don't know, the surveys are open until the end of December or mid-December, or somewhere in there.
So and one thing we do like to keep reminding people of is like the last 2 weeks were focused on part 3, and this week and next week are focused on part 4. But if you do play those later, please go and fill out the survey,
right?
Because we're still going to be checking back in on those pretty often,
right?
And we certainly got like with part 2, because we know a 2-week window is pretty short. Like we have gotten a lot more responses since that kind of main window for that closed, and we've got much more solid numbers on those now. And again, with the numbers I'm giving you here, this is still not as many responses as we'd like to really be able to say with certainty how some of these things shake out. So the more responses we can get, the better confidence we have in our numbers and how the game's working.
Nice. Let's see. And then when we get into like player satisfaction or something like that, how is that holding steady as we're going into more chapters?
It's close. It's holding pretty close to part 2.
Okay.
Part 1 was a little higher. I think part of that is because it's just a straight up dungeon crawl, so people, it's not testing things quite as rigorously as part 2 and part 3 are. So they're a little more kind of tightly wound, because they're really testing specific things. And I think people having the kind of free form feel of Adventure 1, I think we're a little more satisfied with that.
Right.
But the numbers are staying pretty good.
Okay, good.
They're pretty high.
Satisfaction is somewhat happy and all that kind of thing. So that's good. Okay, and now, that covers most of the stuff we can talk about for surveys. Without getting too spoilery again.
Yeah, because most of the other data is like specific things that happen in the adventure. And there's some fun stuff in there, but we don't want to.
And I do think that we might be close to the point now where we can probably start doing spoilery deep dives for, say, the first chapter. Because I am seeing a lot of folks that are like, we're just now starting the second chapter, and it's like, great, that's cool. There's still plenty of time, but it would be fun to get into these, these things that are a little bit more spoilery, and not have to worry about ruining the experience for somebody.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now, let's do this. We've got another top 5 list that we're excited to do. It's going to be fun.
We do, yeah.
This is the top 5 upcoming things.
Yes.
Now, does this mean the top 5 coming in the very next update in 2 weeks?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
This is things that are happening right now, things that are coming sometime soon, and I'll try to give, for each of these, I'll give some amount of perspective on how soon it's coming, or our best estimate, because some of them we haven't fully nailed down the schedule on, to be honest. So, because a lot of this has been getting together various parts of different things, so and other things, because when you're producing a game like this, you never know what's going to pop up. It's like, oh, we need that so Art can get on this, and we need it right away. So we're going to hold this off. So
it's things like character sheets. Like when you make a change that affects the character sheet, it's not like we could just write one out real quick.
Right.
It's like this has to go to art team, this has to go to editing, this has to go to layout, all of those things. So, anyway. So without further ado, let's get into the top 5 upcoming things. The drum roll, which I still have not added to the stream deck. I keep forgetting to do that.
Just put drum emojis in chat.
Just drum emojis in chat. If you have a drum.
Get us some drum emojis.
This is Twitch. They're emotes.
Oh, man.
So that's awkward.
Are there any drum emotes? I'm sorry.
You did that in front of me. No, I'm just kidding.
Just some pipes.
Just some pipes.
Pipes on your keyboard.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Logan, the top 5 upcoming things for the Pathfinder Playtest.
Okay, so number 5 is out. You can get it right now.
Okay.
Pathfinder Society has released a 10th level adventure.
Okay.
It is called The Frozen Oath. If you go to pathfinderplaytest.com, go to the download section, you can download it from there. So it's a 10th level adventure. You'll have to make your own characters for that one. They don't have pre-gens, because the pre-gens, I believe, are 1st and 5th level. So this one, You'll make your own characters, but that has been up for, I think, a couple days now. But if you're looking for more adventures to play, you've already blazed through all of Doomsday Dawn.
Of course.
You're ready for more.
Yeah.
You can play that 10th level adventure.
Right.
So that's number 5.
It's a good one. I like that.
I'm going to go from 5 to 1 this time. Last time I did all the good stuff.
This is good. We're building. We're building. It just gets better from here.
Yeah.
Number 4, please.
Number 4. There's going to be a new survey going up next week. I'm not sure which day yet, but about the bestiary. The playtest bestiary that you can get on the website.
Right.
So it's going to ask some various questions about the monsters within that, some of the formatting of that, how easy the monsters are to use, the stat block, and that kind of thing.
Okay. So now we're ready to get feedback on the bestiary.
Yeah. I mean, we were before. We just hadn't had time to build the surveys on top of everything else. So we're trying to get those.
Nice.
Trying to get that out.
Nice. Okay, good. So if you were sitting on some juicy feedback about the bestiary, next week is your chance.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Not sure when next week.
And just as a reminder, we also have the general surveys on ancestry and background and on classes that are already up. So if you haven't taken those, you want to weigh in on those topics,
definitely do that.
Go fill those out.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps. Everything helps.
It does, yeah. In fact, some of the changes we made for update 1.3 were based on, like, there's a rogue change in there that we asked about on the survey, and it's like, the numbers were overwhelming enough. It's like, let's just do this for the update. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The playtestiary. That's right. I like the playtestiary.
Yeah. I like it and I hate it at the same time.
I like it. I'm a fan of a good portmanteau.
Yeah.
So I can't help myself. All right. So number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah.
There's another new survey going up next week.
Okay.
And it's a pretty long one. It's pretty big and pretty detailed because it is about the rules. Just kind of general rule stuff. So if you were going through the rule book and you're like, I don't like how the rules on movement work, there's a question about that. So there's a nice long survey about a whole bunch of different aspects of the rules.
This is perfect. This is for all the folks that are saying, is there a general feedback that I can give?
Yeah.
Because I've been hearing that from the beginning. It's like, I don't want it to be pointed to this one thing. I want a nice general feedback. This is going to be that?
This asks about a bunch of topics specifically. So like if you want to weigh in on resonance, there's a section on that, or how treasure is allocated or any of that. There's also an open feedback survey, kind of like we do with each of the adventures, where if you want to go in and just straight up type stuff to us, you can do that there. One thing that we ask for those, because it makes it much easier for us to go through that data, is if there's something you don't really have a strong opinion about, or you don't have kind of actionable information on, just leave it blank.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of responses where it's just like, we'll just have like an entry that's just like, I'm not sure, or whatever. And it's like, that's not super helpful. So just go ahead and leave those blank if you don't have anything, so we can kind of sort through all the stuff a little more easily.
Okay. All right.
And there's going to be, there's all kinds of questions on that rule survey. And then if there's anything that's missing, you can just go to that open response survey and drop it in there.
Okay, awesome. So a lot more opportunity to give feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have an answer, don't feel compelled to put an answer in.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Number 2.
Number 2 is something that I believe Jason or possibly Mark talked about on one of the previous.
I think it was Jason.
Paizo Fridays.
I think so.
Which is a adventure specifically made to test an alternate resonance system.
Okay.
So we've gotten a lot of feedback on resonance, that people are finding it too limiting, are not feeling like it has a strong kind of thematic connection that makes sense to them. And the biggest piece of feedback we've gotten over and over and over and over again is, I hate it that potions cost resonance.
Absolutely.
They're just like, I drank the thing. If I drink a pint of booze, it is going to have an effect on me whether I spend resonance or not. Why doesn't that happen with potions?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Please don't drink a pint of booze.
Don't drink a pint of booze.
What are you doing?
That was your idea. You gave them that idea.
Sorry, chat. Don't do it.
Don't.
Just say no to
Jinx,
the entire
give me a pint of booze.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. No.
So so we're going to do a kind of an alternate system And this adventure is going to be kind of presented specifically to test this out. It's going to be kind of a capsule of the system just for this resonance test. Partially because if we were to try to change it for the entire playtest, that amount of work is really massive.
Right.
And so we're testing something with a kind of smaller presentation. And to be honest, the likelihood we could change the entire resonance system during the playtest rather than the final book is pretty low. So we're trying to give you something that's like this. This covers kind of what we really want to test in this. Right. The presentation of that is going to be one of the Pathfinder Society adventures called Raiders of Shrieking Peak.
Yeah.
We're going to put up a version of that with any changes necessary to work with the system. The adventure itself isn't going to change much because most of the changes are going to be on the player side. But we are going to have the adventure. We're going to have new pre-gens rebuilt with different item layouts and things to test out as much of this system as we can. They might have a little more treasure than the previous pre-gens just because at that particular level we might need to give them a little extra gear just to test all the things we want to test.
Right.
And then we're going to have kind of a document that is, here is the complete rules system for this and all the items and whatever else is necessary to test this.
And when do we expect this to be available?
We are not really sure on that one. That's one where it's like, it's going to be a big enough piece of work and there are enough meetings that we have to have within the team and with other teams to get everything kind of squared away that we're not exactly sure when that's going to come out. We're hoping in a few weeks, but we're not 100% sure. Okay.
And again, when that is released, the name of the adventure that they'll be playing, that
Raiders of Shrieking Peak.
Raiders of Shrieking Peak.
That adventure has already been released for kind of standard Pathfinder playtest. You can go on the website and download it right now. And if you played it for Pathfinder Society, you can play this one as well, the new one, and report it again. And in fact, we're going to do a survey about this resonance test, like a specific one about this, to see how people like it, to have them compare it to the other ones. Right. And if you played Raiders of Shrieking Peak, we're really hoping to have a section that's like, oh, you played Raiders of Shrieking Peak and you played this new version of it, and get some really good direct comparison of the two. Yeah, so if you've played both, that's really valuable. And if you want to play Raiders of Shrieking Peak now, to get ready for that, you can find it on the PathfinderPlaytest.com page. It's in the downloads along with the other Pathfinder Society adventures.
Since it's PFS, I assume it's going to be a little bit of a quicker
playthrough. I think it's a 4-hour session or 5-hour session.
But
almost it's meant to be done in one.
Go. Kind of one go. You can play the thing. Okay, cool.
And again, the pre-gens are up on the website, the kind of standard pre-gens. And if we, when we get together the resonance test, we'll have new pre-gens specifically for that.
Right. Okay. And then that brings us to number one upcoming thing for the updates.
Upcoming thing. The remaining thing I want to talk about is update 1.4.
Okay, that's the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 1.4 is not going to be as big as 1.3. Okay. We don't want to dump that much stuff on everybody all the time. But there is still one topic that we've seen a lot of chatter about that we want to address with that. And that is the ancestries. We've been seeing a lot of people kind of saying that the ancestries feel like they aren't getting as much as they used to in first edition. Kind of saying like, I get to pick one feat and then there's all this other stuff I used to get I don't get anymore. It doesn't feel comprehensive enough. It doesn't feel enough like that, like the race used to feel. So now the ancestry kind of pales in comparison for a lot of folks.
I've heard that.
Yeah. So we're working on an update to ancestries to try to address that. And so we're working on that now, hoping to get that in 1.4. So we're pressing on that as quickly as we can to try to get that all together.
And again, that's not this Monday, but next Monday would be 1.4, so that there's more option, I suppose.
Just more period.
Stuff. More good stuff.
You'll just have more stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that obviously is a number one level upcoming thing. It's got a release date. We know what it is. So
as soon as we're done here, I'm going to run out and try to write more stuff for Ancestries. We've got to start on it, but it's something that we're kind of like, as a group, had to go through. Mark Seifter did kind of the initial pitch based on some suggestions from Jason and the rest of the team. And so we were kind of going through that and making sure we like it and then figuring out how to expand on it.
Awesome.
It's looking pretty good.
Yeah, October 8th that's the I believe that's the next Monday. The first is this Monday, then that'd be the 8th. So yeah, and there you go. What else do we have that we didn't actually?
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that covers everything.
Awesome. Let's do this. Let's say goodbye, and then we'll do some Q&A. So on that future update bombshell, we're going to say goodbye. I want to make sure to say thank you for joining us. If you're on Twitch, hang back. We're going to do some Q&A, and we can't wait to do that. For everybody else joining us on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. Please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification button so that you can be updated every time I update more stuff to YouTube, which happens like 4 times a week now. So feel free to do that. And in the meantime, for Logan Bonner here, and for Paizo, and for me, your old pal Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again. Bye.